The earth is the Lord's, and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein, for he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters. Who may ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who may stand in this holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to an idol, nor sworn deceitfully. He shall receive blessings from the Lord, and righteousness from the God of his salvation. This is Jacob, the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face. Lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O you gates. Lift up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. A Psalm of David.
Our reading this morning comes from Mark, the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10, and verses 13 to 16. Jesus is in Judea on the other side of the Jordan, and he's speaking. He's being harassed by some, and he's teaching. Then they brought little children to him, that he might touch them. But the disciples rebuked those who brought them. But when Jesus saw it, he was greatly displeased and said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not forbid them. For of such is the kingdom of God. Assuredly, I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God as a little child will by no means enter it." And he took them up in his arms, laid his hands on them, and blessed them. May God add to the meaning of his word as we proceed. Now it's a great joy to have Sarah with us in person, and I now invite her to come up and take over.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here again. I think in the past I've been here in summer most frequently, but I am really enjoying the fact that blue skies still, I think I start every time I share here saying this, but I love the anatomy of this room and how the sky and the light just floods into this building. And I just think it's such a beautiful example of the light that we carry, the hope that we have, also being aware of what's going on and seeing outside in our world, celebrations and trials and things, but just the light and the hope that's in this place as we gather together with this word that is light and hope. I'm always inspired by that, by you and this actual structure. So, excited to be here this morning. I'm actually really hoping this morning to share some stories and bring some encouragement from Australia and from Papua New Guinea. Some encouragement from the tropics into our winter. And I have behind me a series of photos from a range of different expressions of faith in action that the team I'm part of with Youth with a Mission, the team that we're part of actually, as part of this church and the missions investment as well in prayer and in financial support, some of the fruit of that in a range of different stories. And I know sometimes when I share, I've shared predominantly about the work of our medical ship, but today I wanted to share how that is one part of actually a more diverse expression. And that passage that's just been read is one of the things that's really been going through my mind, just reminded of the fact that Jesus' heart really is for the least. It is for those who seem perhaps not to fit within the power structures of the day. And he really rebukes his disciples there. Their filter of who he is a bit skew-iff. They acknowledge he's an authority, he's an important man, but they think that if you're an authority and an important person, you need to be separated from trivial things like small children. But in fact, Jesus says to them, no, my leadership, my authority, how I do it is, yes, I'm strong, but I stoop down and I pick up and I connect with people, and that's where my heart is at. So I hope in these stories today we'll see a glimpse of the way that in the work these people are doing, and we're all part of, and prayer support and various things, the way we're able to click our thinking into who are those that we're not seeing, who are those who are perhaps a little beyond what seems powerful altogether or in front of our face. So let's go on a journey of a few stories. And I think you may actually, some of you may have seen this picture before. This is, for those who haven't seen it before or haven't met me before, I'm Sarah. I've been working with YWAM Medical Ships. It's a medical healthcare ministry up in Papua New Guinea, based in Townsville, Australia as well, for about 10 years now. And you can see in the background of the shot a ship. I mean, that's the thing that's right in front of everyone's faces, but actually that ship is a logistics hub from which we go out to remote areas in PNG that don't have roads very much at all, and don't actually have too many airstrips either, but have a lot of water. So we use this ship to connect with places, but the ship's actually here anchored off a site in Port Moresby that's been really exciting for us in the last 2 years, in spite of pandemic and whatever. We've been actually able to take on a piece of land which was in a sorry state, but actually for us it's become a home on the land to support our work both in that city of Port Moresby and across Papua New Guinea. So I'd like to bring you into the backstory of some of that, because I think it's a really amazing testimony of what God can do even in some strange circumstances to bring good, to bring some beauty, in fact, from some ashes here. So, introducing you, I think I may have introduced this gentleman in December last year. His name's Fraser. He's a young Papua New Guinean, loves the Lord. He's quite diminutive, a little bit shy, but gosh, when he preaches, when he speaks from the Bible, he has a very strong voice. You would think he's very quiet, and he's the sort of guy who gets alongside teams, leads teams in a really sort of quiet, encouraging way, gets alongside kids amazingly. He's someone that we have a lot of respect for, and he's the one who's been bringing in some of the street boys who now call themselves the Jetty Boys. Some of them were part of doing this horrible graffiti and just tearing the place to bits in the past, but now they're part of the team. It's been doing a big clean-up. Well, here's some of all of our team as well up there, doing a clean-up to get rid of the junk inside this place, which was really a contested land between a number of different landowners and government authorities, etc., etc. It had just been, it was a not very nice place. But they've been working together as a team, and this was about 18 months ago to clean it up. This is about 6 months ago, if that. You can see how tidied up it is, and we've been able to do some fundraising and bring in different support from other volunteers and companies to start to build, clean it up and start to build in dormitories. That's now dormitories all across the top for young missionaries and mission trainees. And then we've been able to build it up further to include a air-conditioned training space, and areas for worship, and the community are starting to come in and have times of worship and teaching in the space. So if we come back to my screen here, one of the other exciting things that's happened on that site, it blows my mind to think what's happened on that site just in the last couple of, well, really several months. But one of the things as well has been we've been gifted a dental trailer, which, if you can imagine a truck hocking onto the front there, this is actually inside there got 3 dental chairs. It's really beautifully set out. The sides actually pop out. And this was provided to us actually in Australia, and then we were able to get it shipped up to Port Moresby. It's been completely fitted out by a dental company, and it just arrived in April, I think, this year, much to the fanfare. And it's going to be one of the key ways that this site reaches out to the city of Port Moresby. The city of Port Moresby is a bit different from serving in really remote rural areas. The rural-urban divide is quite large in Papua New Guinea, but Port Moresby has very little dental care, but a lot of squatter settlements, but also a really, really high proportion of young people. So more than 50% of PNG's whole population is under 25 years of age. It's a huge youth bulge there, and that's represented very much in the city, where there are hundreds and hundreds of high schools, thousands of young people there, often facing some pretty challenging circumstances in terms of getting ahead. But we've been given a full, wide open door to go in and run vision, values, faith, purpose seminars with the young people, addressing some of the stuff that's going on, and also integrating wellbeing and healthcare. So our dental trailer is going to be becoming part of the arrowhead that allows us to step into high schools, support teachers in their role, but also bring some faith-based messages around what it means to live a life of purpose, to have hope, hoping that some of the young people that are involved won't be the next generation into the gang culture of those squatter areas, but will be able to be part of the change. And the why I have this photo here is because this is the first crop. This is the first crop of the young people from local areas, particularly local churches who've stepped up and decided to volunteer their time. They've been serving around the place, they've been doing training, they are amazing in performing arts and celebration. So they have been doing a lot of work both in the seminars and also in becoming a performing arts troupe that's been able to even perform for the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. They're very expert at their work, but I think their message of hope is something that's a bit different from just your average singing and dancing group. They've got something additional. They've got fire in their bellies, and it's just amazing to be able to see that this facility in Port Moresby growing and being able to be used to release young Papua New Guineans into missions at home. And the hope is to see young Papua New Guineans going abroad. So one of the key speakers that's going to come and share with these guys in the next couple of weeks is a Papua New Guinean who's been doing long-term missions in, I'm going to say, a nation in Southeast Asia. Just realised that we're on a live stream. But there's much space in the world for Papua New Guineans to take up their role as missionaries. Our hope is that there will be missionaries sent from every nation to every nation, because we all have something to share with one another, and there's no reason why PNG, having been a quote-unquote receiving nation for so many years, can't itself now be a sending nation in global missions. So that's really the heart behind this facility. Well, I've lingered there a bit, primarily because I just think this one is, I've used this word, it's overused, but exciting. I think this particular work here that's come out of the woodwork, it's just popped up in the last 18 months really, is the fruit of a lot of preparatory work over the previous 10 years, but it's deeply encouraging for all of us. And I particularly want to thank you for your ongoing prayer for our team, because this is a happy story, but if you can imagine from just looking at some of those shots, you can see there's been quite a bit of blood, sweat and tears go into the journey. And I'm going to say they're well cared for, but also this team have undergone some, it's not an easy life. There's a bit of hardship as they've eked out life at that spot and made it increasingly livable. So we're just so grateful, knowing that there's prayer support that has been part of holding the energy together for our teams as we've pushed through those obstacles and are now able to see some really wonderful early fruit of a harvest still coming. And you can see that's another shot from a drone from the ship. We just have loved to see these two things together. You can see this is the ship, but in the background there, those white buildings up on the on the shore are the jetty location. And that's just about 10 minutes from the downtown of Port Moresby. So it looks a bit beachy, but it's actually just on the footstep of the sprawling Pacific capital. I actually meant to bring my phone up here so I could have a little timer, because I just lose track of time when I start talking about these things. But I do think I've spent up almost all the time on this one topic. So I'm just going to flick through a couple of, I don't even know what time I started, so I could just start at 0 and we'll go another half hour. But, but I'm just going to flick through a bit more quickly now. But if anyone has more questions about the jetty in particular, please, let's chat afterwards. I'd love to share more stories about that work. Okay, the ship, still going. In fact, we talk about the ship, but as I said earlier on, the ship is just the tool. It's the most obvious thing that sends teams to land and works with local health workers, training up and equipping and coming alongside, advocating for supplies, working with these guys. This was a group in a really remote area. Some of you may have seen this photo from last year as well. This was when the Delta wave just hit a really remote part of Papua New Guinea, which is on the border with Indonesia, which was also hammered by a really nasty, you might remember last year Indonesia was a place that was really affected by the pandemic. And it probably came across the border there. And so this province was affected early on. And we just happened to have a team who'd just flown into this area, and they were one of the few teams that had test kits. So they started doing testing on some of the sick people and realised that, this is actually what's going on. We were able to advocate through the Australian Government, Ministry of Health. We have a strong relationship there, Foreign Affairs. And so together we were able to chopper in personal protective equipment and masks, vaccines, test kits, basic medicines, and work alongside these health workers who really had nothing to respond, nothing to keep themselves safe and nothing to really respond with. So that's not really the celebration, but the celebration is thankful to God that when his people say yes and say, hey, look, I don't know how to fix the world, but would you use me? We find coincidences like teams of skilled nurses finding themselves in such places, people like me working with them remotely, able to connect with Australian government, which has a lot of funds for response in the Pacific, but sometimes needs guidance to know where to put them. And putting all those things together, we were able to work with this Lake Murray community. I don't want to boast about that, but even sharing about it again, I'm just reminded about how God is working, even in situations that just seem like you're facing a bit of a cliff. But sometimes a rope comes down the cliff and you just are able to climb up it. And that was a wonderful example of working with those ones. But I want to share about the fact that the ship isn't the only thing we use. And so this is quite a dark photo, but I wonder, what can you see of that photo actually? It's not cattle. It's not trapeze people. What are you seeing from the back there in that image? A cloud? Yes, there is a cloud. The top third is cloud, and then there's some trees. And then you might be able to just pick out some figures there. That's a team who are trekking in through, there's no roads, but there are some muddy tracks. And so this is a team who have their backpacks on, and they tracked on that. I think it was a 3-hour trek, that one, to get into Kenny Village. This is the sort of work that happens, and part of the reason for sharing that is because right now we are continuing to work again with these local health workers. This is from 2 weeks ago in the Western Province in the Mabura Treaty Villages, just north of Cape York in Australia, if you know where that is. And these are local health workers who are able to come out on patrol with us, and we're seeing such a change in the immunisation rates for the children. One of the things that happens on the back of pandemic is dropping in childhood immunisations. One of the things that happens when that happens is things like whooping cough or measles starting to sweep through. Unfortunately, we've had the first reports of whooping cough starting to outbreak in Papua New Guinea. So the race is on to really update the immunisations, particularly for the smallest infants, the ones who are under 1 year of age. Well, when we started 12 months ago in this area, we've gone about 4 or 5 times now, we were wrestling with feisty big toddlers We want to immunise them, but they are a bit feisty. But this team who've been out there just 2 weeks ago, they were doing very few toddlers. They actually had reports now of they're finishing off the immunisation schedule for the toddlers, and they were seeing more and more of the under ones, the smallest babies, getting their immunisations on time, including for whooping cough, and being able to see the local health workers participate in that. So this has been a real encouragement for our team at the moment. To be fair, we're actually facing some unexpected curveballs with mechanics again. And last time I spoke with you, actually, we were praying for our windlass. The windlass, it's a thing that gets the anchor up and down, had broken on our ship. And I remember we were praying here about it because we weren't sure how to, if your anchor's not working, it's a bit of a problem if you've got a ship. Long story short, that one was navigated. It was amazing. We were able to get back out there. But just in the last 6 weeks, we've struck another series of significant things we need to face and figure out how to do that, which means we have a team who's trying to figure that out, but we don't want to stop working. So that's where we have our contingency plan and pivot to work with MAF and other organisations like that to send our land teams out to do this so that they can't sail there, but where can we walk? Where can we walk to get to the children? So our teams are currently still going on, continuing to provide maternal child health. This is an antenatal check there. No, this woman's not lying on a bed. That's because there aren't any beds. But we do take a camping mat thing, which she's lying on there as Dr. Helen reviews her. So we're continuing to do this work, continuing to weigh all the crying ones. But at the same time, really asking God, okay, we're facing another challenge here with our ship. So what do you want us to do in the rest of the year? We can't just stop. We're not going to stop going out there. But how are you going to make a way, and what sort of solutions do you want to bring to us, either through miraculous ways or the miracle of wisdom or the miracle of expert advice that can come in to help with our repairs. We're just leaning in, and the reason is because this matters. We just know that Jesus' heart is for the small children. He cared about all those adults around him, but his heart was for those children. He was so angry when people tried to keep children away from him. And he responded with such affection to the fact that the parents not only acknowledged his authority, acknowledged their need of him, acknowledged their children's need of him, and chose to even muscle up to the disciples to bring their kids forward. When we think of that situation, we realise that we just can't sit back and say it's too hard and not keep going. So right now we are encouraged and also drawing courage to find solutions into these next few months. At the same time, drawing courage, the team up, the nation of Norway basically, has fundraised and put together 2 new patrol boats for us. Yes, they're on land and they're on their side. That's because it's about to be loaded into a container. In fact, delivery into Port Moresby is expected on the 14th of August. And we're really looking forward to extra boats coming to help us. Even when the big ship might be needing more repairs, we're seeing great equipment like this come through, which is a real shot in the arm, pun unintended. And meanwhile, in Townsville, we just spread ourselves across these different expressions. We have a building team who've been able to come across, another site that was pretty much abandoned. This is actually on an island called Magnetic Island, just off Townsville. We have a mobile missions maintenance team up from Victoria, working with some of our volunteers, our guys who are there in Townsville, and they're doing up these holiday apartments, really, but doing them up so that they can be a site for training, for youth camps and things, but also a site so that when we have our teams who've been out on extended patrols in PNG, they can come down and have a place to have some R&R before they then head out again. So it's wonderful to be able to see needs being met in ways which were unexpected as well. This is a very unexpected site for us to have access to. But again, it's coming along great guns. And at the same time, it's like it doesn't rain but it pours. We've actually put up for a a state grant in Australia and Queensland, and actually, no, it's a federal grant actually, federal and state grant together. This is a artist's impression. We've been doing a lot of youth work in PNG and also in Indigenous communities in North Queensland, including seminar programs in high schools. So we're doing that in PNG and also amongst quote-unquote at-risk youth in Townsville. As part of that, we've been able to take on an adventure-based learning, a warehouse really, that's being built out as we speak to provide high ropes, low ropes, rock climbing, and another opportunity to have young people brought in, to have adventure-based, kind of crunchy faith and values, life skills, leadership seminars, which is an amazing opportunity for our team to be able to instill messages that are hopeful in an environment that's not particularly hopeful. We've got really high rates of, well, it's similar in New Zealand, I think, as well, in some settings, but quite high rates of youth suicide, very unfortunate epidemic of extremely violent pornography, and all the horrible violent outworkings of that amongst young people's health. And a really horrible outbreak of just delinquency in terms of cars being stolen. This is a big thing. It's ram raids here, it's car stealing in Townsville. And a lot of people are saying, well, this place is just going to pot. But what we want to say is, no, these young people actually are created in the image of a God who's amazing, who loves them, has a purpose for their life. And yeah, they could be a bit rugged on the outside, but that's not who they were made to be. And it seems that the message is getting attention because a lot of people are writing reports about the problem, but there aren't a huge number of organisations able or willing to step into the space. And we just happen to, I guess we're just crazy, right? We're young people from many nations who have encountered the amazing grace we were just singing about and know that the amazing grace isn't just for us, it's for other young people as well. And so all this is happening at the same time, providing platforms for us to extend that message into mostly actually state high schools, but also Christian education establishments as well. And alongside that, and the last thing on this slideshow is, because we have this property and it previously was set up as a Salvation Army Drug and Rehabilitation Centre, they've got a new premises, but there's dormitories all the way through here. So about 3 years ago, we started the process of updating those dormitories. And in the last year, we've just celebrated the first anniversary of our transitional house. Now, I can only show you the lounge room that's been set up there and the kitchen that we've just got extra grant funding to set up a kitchen. But this is actually a housing area for mostly Indigenous young women who are at risk of homelessness between 18 and 23. So a number of our missionaries, young women, live with them in dormitories, and they have some shared spaces, but then a secure area which is a safe housing for these young women. Numbers of our team who spend, say, 3 months in PNG will then come back and stay for another 3 months, say, in that facility, living shoulder to shoulder and just creating a safe home environment for these young Indigenous women. And I have to say, if I were to talk forever about something, I could have just taken all the other photos away and I would just share with you stories about this place, because I think although it's quite private, but the work that's done in the lives of these young women who otherwise are in really difficult situations, again speaks to me about not shooing away people that seem maybe not to fit, but allowing space, because Jesus is really interested. He's interested in crouching down. He's interested in telling the disciples where to put themselves out of the way to allow people who may have less power or be more vulnerable to come close to him. And I hope that's the message that you're really seeing through all of these different expressions, whether it's setting up in Port Moresby youth seminars with these children, young people, or whether it's doing healthcare work in remote parts of PNG, whether it's working in Indigenous communities in North Queensland. An attempt, a growing learning attempt to listen to what Jesus said about what it means to extend his kingdom, which is one that's inclusive and has compassion on us, but also on those around us. And there you have it, a whistle-stop tour through all manner of things. And again, just to reiterate a big thank you. None of this happens. You can imagine that running all these programs and all this development work as well doesn't happen without a number of people like me. I'm just one, but I'm one of a team who are supported. A number of our team are from New Zealand, who are supported from congregations around our islands, and the impact from our little spots in New Zealand over yonder is really significant. And so on behalf of all of our team, particularly the Kiwis on our team, thinking of Gemma, Matt, Hannah, myself, just want to share an encouragement and a thank you for your journeying with us.